Hello everyone, welcome to today's live session. Today we are going to study about the section 5 Visualizing the Nation of the chapter Nationalism in Europe from History. Visualizing the Nation. While it is easy enough to represent a ruler through a portrait or a statue, how does one go about giving a face to a nation? Artists in the 18th and 19th century found a way out by personifying a nation. In other words, they represented a country as if it were a person. Nations were then portrayed as female figures. The female form that has chosen to personify the nation did not stand for any particular woman in real life. Rather, it sought to give the abstract idea of the nation a concrete form. That is, the female became an allegory of the nation. Allegory definition is given in the bottom. Allegory. When an abstract idea, for instance, greed, envy, freedom, liberty, is expressed through a person or thing, an allegorical story has two meanings, one literal and one symbolic. We are going to the explanation, visualizing the nation. The section explains how people give a face and identity to a nation. Why was this needed? A king or ruler can be shown through a portrait or statue. Okay. But a nation is an idea, not a person. So during the 18th and 19th centuries, artists represented nations as female figures. These figures were not real women, they were symbols of the nation. Allegory. An allegory is when an abstract idea is represented through a person or object. For example, liberty, woman with a red cap and broken chains. Justice is shown by blindfolded woman carrying weighing scales. Similarly, nations were represented through female allegories. Mariana, symbol of France. In France, the nation was represented by Marianne. Features of Marianne: red cap, tricolor, French national colors, cockade ribbon badge. Importance: represented the French Republic and liberty. Statues of Marianne were placed in public squares. Her image appeared on coins and stamps, reminded people of national unity. This is Marianne. She wears a red cap and have a tricolor French national flag in her hands. And also she has a ribbon badge that is called as cockade. And importance: this represented the French Republic and liberty. Statues of Marianne were placed in public squares. Her image appeared on coins and stamps, reminded people of national unity. Next one is Germania, symbol of Germany. So the symbol of France was Marianne. Symbol of Germany is Germania. And what are the characteristics of Marianne? She wears a tricolor flag, and red cap, also a cockade, that is a ribbon badge. Germania, symbol of Germany. In Germany, the nation was represented by Germania. Features of Germania: wears a crown of oak leaves. The German oak tree symbolizes heroism and strength. Importance: became the symbol of the German nation, inspired feelings of unity among German people. So features of Germany was she wears a crown of oak leaves. Also, the German, because in German the oak tree symbolizes heroism and strength. Wears a crown of oak leaves. The German oak tree symbolizes heroism and strength. Importance: became the symbol of the German nation, inspired feelings of unity among German people. So this is the figure of Germania. She wears a crown of oak leaves because in Germany oak tree symbolizes heroism and strength. Quick revision: country France, national allegory was Marianne and symbols red cap, tricolor and cockade. And in Germany, national allegory was Germania and the symbol was crown of oak leaves. Exam points: nations were represented as female allegories. Marianne symbolized France, Germania symbolized Germany. Marianne symbols were red cap, tricolor and cockade. Germania wore a crown of oak leaves symbolizing heroism. Images of Marianne appeared on coins and stamps. You will recall that during the French Revolution, artists used the female allegory to portray ideas such as liberty, justice, and republic. These ideals were represented through specific objects or symbols. As you will remember, the attributes of liberty are the red cap or the broken chain, while justice is generally blindfolded woman carrying a pair of weighing scales. So liberty is represented by a red cap or the broken chain, and justice is represented by a blindfolded woman carrying pair of weighing scales. Similar female allegories were invented by artists in the 19th century to represent the nation. In France, she was christened Marianne, a popular Christian name, which underlined the idea of people's nation. Her characteristics were drawn from those in Liberty and the Republic: the red cap, tricolor, cockade. Statues of Marianne were erected in public squares to remind the public the national symbol of unity and to persuade them to identify with it. Marianne images were marked on coins and stamps. Similarly, Germania became the allegory of German nation. In visual representations, Germania wears a a crown of oak leaves, as the German oak stands for heroism. So here this is a figure of Germania. Germania, you can see crown of oak leaves. This crown represent heroism in Germany. Meanings of the symbols. Broken chains, that indicates being freed. Breastplate with eagle. Broken chains, in the figure it is broken chains. This is broken chain and it means being freed. And breastplate with the eagle, that is this one. Breastplate with the eagle, that shows symbol of the German Empire, their strength. Then crown of oak leaves, that means heroism. Sword, readiness to fight. This is the sword. And crown of oak leaves is this one. And olive branch around the sword. And this olive branches of olive, and that around the sword implies willingness to make peace. Black, red, and gold tricolor. This flag of the liberal nationalists in 1848, banned by the dukes of the German states. Rays of the rising sun. This is the rays of the rising sun, beginning of a new era. What is an allegory? An allegory is a way of expressing an abstract idea through a person or an object. Thus, it is the way of expressing an abstract idea through a person or object. So, allegory means the way of expressing an abstract idea using a person or object. Who became the allegory of German nation? Germania. Explanation. Germania was the female allegory representing the German nation. She was often shown wearing a crown of oak leaves symbolizing heroism and strength. Which of the following symbols was associated with Marianne? Broken chain and red cap. Correct. Marianne's characteristics were drawn from liberty and the republic. Her symbols included the red cap, tricolor, and cockade. The red cap and broken chain were symbols of liberty. Why were statues of Marianne erected in public squares in France? To honor French queens, to celebrate military victories, to remind people of national unity and encourage identification with the nation, to decorate public places. Most probable answer is C. The statues of Marianne were erected in public squares to remind people of national unity and persuade them to identify with the French nation. What does the term allegory mean? A real historical person representing a nation, a military symbol of nationalism, an abstract idea expressed through a person or object. An abstract idea expressed through a person or object, it is called as allegory. Explanation. An allegory is an abstract idea such as liberty, justice, or nation, represented through a person or object. In visual representations, Germania wears a crown of oak leaves because the German oak stands for heroism. Which national allegory appeared on coins and stamps in France? It's Mariana. Which of the following symbols explanation? In France, Marianne became the national allegory. Her image was widely used in coins stamps, statues, and public buildings to symbolize the French nation. Which of the following symbols was not associated with Marianne? Red cap, tricolor, cockade, crown of oak leaves. Crown of oak leaves. That was associated with Germania. The crown of oak leaves was associated with Germania, not Marianne. Marianne's symbols were the red cap, tricolor, and cockade. The female figure used to personify a nation was intended to represent a real queen of the country, give a concrete form to the abstract idea of the nation, show the superiority of women in politics, represent religious beliefs. I think the most probable answer is give a concrete form to the abstract idea of the nation. Explanation: nations are abstract ideas. To make them easier for people to identify with, artists represented them as female allegories, giving a concrete form to the abstract idea of the nation. According to NCERT, Marianne's characteristics were drawn from royal families of France, Liberty and the Republic, Church, Napoleon Bonaparte. I think it's a Liberty and a Republic. Marianne's characteristics were drawn from Liberty and the Republic. This is why she was often shown with symbols such as the red cap, tricolor, and cockade. In Germany, the allegory of the nation was called Germania. Explanation: Germania was the female allegory of the German nation. She became a symbol of German unity and nationalism. Why did artists in the 19th century personify nations as female figures? Nations were abstract ideas and needed a visible form to inspire unity. Nations are abstract ideas. By portraying them as female allegories, artists give them a human form that people could identify with and rally around, helping to promote nationalism and unity. Which statement about Marianne is correct? She symbolized the French. She was a real queen of France. She symbolized the French Republic and liberty. She represented the German nation. She wore a crown of oak leaves. She symbolized the French Republic and liberty. This is the most probable answer. Explanation: Marianne symbolized the French Republic and liberty. She was not a real person but a national allegory used to represent France. What was the purpose of putting Marianne's images on coins and stamps? Increase the value of currency, to promote trade with other countries, to remain citizens of the national unity and the ideals of the nation, to honor French artists, to remain citizens of national unity and the ideals of the nation. Explanation: Marianne's images on coins, stamps, and public buildings constantly reminded French citizens of national unity, liberty, and the republic. Which of the following pairs is correctly matched? Marianne, Germany; Germania, France; Marianne, France; Germania, Britain. Marianne, France is the correct answer. Explanation: the correct match is Marianne, France; Germany, Germany. These female allegories helped people visualize and identify with their nation. The German oak tree used in representations of Germania symbolized heroism. According to NCERT, which of the following is an example of allegory? Map of France, photograph of a king, female figure representing the nation, a national flag. Female figure representing the nation. We have one more page to study. This page, meanings of Germania symbols. This is not actually Germania symbol, it is widely given some of the symbols like broken chains. Broken chains means being freed. Breastplate with the eagle means strength of the German Empire. Or crown of oak leaves means heroism. Sword, readiness to fight. Olive branch around the sword, willingness to make peace. Black, red, and gold tricolor, flag of the liberal nationalists in 1848. Race of the rising sun, beginning of a new era. The fallen Germania. The picture shows fallen Germania lying on the ground, defeated and sorrowful. What does it mean? Germania represents the German nation. The fallen Germania symbolizes the failure of 1848 revolution in Germany. The liberal nationalists wanted a national unity, a constitution and democracy, but the revolution failed because monarch and conservative forces regained power. Therefore, the artist Julius Hubner portrayed Germania as fallen and helpless to show the disappointment of German nationalists after 1848. The fallen Germania was shown by Julius Hubner. What historical event is referred to as the fallen Germania? The painting refers to the failure of the 1848 revolution in Germany when liberal nationalists failed to achieve national unity and constitutional government. So this is the figure of fallen Germania. It represents the 1848 revolution. And that revolution has failed due to opposition from monarchs and military. MCQs from this page. The black, red and gold tricolor represented the flag of the liberal nationalist in 1848. The black, red and gold tricolor was the flag of the liberal nationalists during the 1848 revolution in the German states. What did the broken chains in Germania's symbolism represent? Being freed from oppression. According to the table, the olive branch around the sword represents willingness to make peace. The olive branch around the word symbolizes willingness to make peace, while the sword itself symbolizes readiness to fight. What do the rays of the rising sun symbolize in the allegory of Germania? Beginning of a new era. Explanation. The rays of the rising sun symbolize the beginning of a new era, a hopeful future for the German nation. In the table of Germania symbols, the breastplate with the eagle stands for strength of German Empire. The breastplate with eagle represents the strength of German Empire. The eagle was a traditional symbol associated with the German power and authority, whereas oak leaves represents heroism. What is Germania shown with a sword? readiness to fight for the nation. This word in Germany's hand symbolizes readiness to fight for the nation and defend its ideals. The painting The Fallen Germany 1850 symbolizes fallen Germany, the failure of the 1848 revolution in Germany. The painting The Fallen Germany 1850 represents the failure of the 1848 revolution in Germany. The hopes of liberal nationalists were for a united and constitutional Germany were crushed, and Germany is shown fallen and sorrowful to symbolize this disappointment. Which symbol of Germany represent heroism? Crown of oak leaves. Crown of oak leaves symbolizes heroism. In German tradition, the oak tree represented courage, strength, and heroic qualities. What does the black, red, and gold tricolor in Germany's image represent? The flag of the liberal nationalists in 1848. The black, red, and gold tricolor was the flag adopted by the liberal nationalists during the 1848 revolution. It became a powerful symbol of German unity, freedom, and constitutional government. In The Fallen Germany, Germany is shown fallen to express disappointment caused by the failure of the 1848 revolution. The Fallen Germany portrays the sadness and disappointment of German nationalists after the 1848 revolution failed. Their dream of a united, democratic Germany was not achieved at that time. Which symbol in Germany's allegory represents the beginning of a new era? A rays of the rising sun. The rays of the rising sun symbolize the beginning of a new era. They express hope for a brighter future and the emergence of a united nation. According to NCRT, which symbol represents being freed? Broken chains. Quick revision of Germania's symbols. Broken chains, being freed, breastplate with eagle, strength of German empire, crown of oak leaves, heroism, sword, readiness to fight, olive branch around the sword, willingness to make peace, black, red, and gold tricolor, liberal nationalist of 1848, rays of the rising sun, beginning of a new era. Next MCQ, who painted the fallen Germany in 1850? Hugh Julius Hubner. Which symbol in Germania's allegory represents the willingness to make peace? Olive branch around the sword. Which of the following pairs is incorrectly matched? Broken chains, being freed, right? Sword, readiness to fight, right? Crown of oak leaves, wealth and prosperity. No, it stands for heroism. That's a wrong statement. Rise of the rising sun, beginning of a new era. The painting The Fallen Germania was created in 1850 by Julius Hubner. Represented the failure of 1848 revolutions. The Fallen Germania was painted in 1850 by Julius Hubner, symbolizing the failure of 1848 revolution in Germany. Which of the following symbols represents strength of German Empire? Breastplate with eagle. The breastplate with the eagle symbolizes the strength of the German Empire. The eagle was a traditional emblem of German power and authority. Which symbol was used by the liberal nationalists in 1848? Black, red, and gold tricolor flags. The black, red, and gold tricolor was the flag of liberal nationalists during the 1848 revolution. It became a symbol of freedom, constitutional government, and a national unity. Which of the following statement about Germany is correct? She was a real queen of Germany. She was the female allegory of the German nation. She symbolized the French Republic. She represented the Austrian Empire. She was the female allegory of the German nation. Germany was the female allegory of the German nation. She was not a real person but a symbolic figure used to represent Germany and inspire nationalist feelings. Which one of the following is not a symbol associated with Germania? Broken chains, crown of oak leaves, tricolor of black, red, and gold. Red cap. Red cap was for Mariana. The red cap is associated with Mariana, France, not Germania. Mariana, France. Red cap, tricolor, cockade. Germania, Germany. Broken chains, crown of oak leaves, sword, olive branch, black, red, gold, tricolor. Rise of the rising run, breastplate with the eagle. Excellent. You have completed the NCERT topic visualizing the nation with almost perfect accuracy. Revision. 1 minute revision. Allegory. An abstract idea represented by a person. Marianne, France. Symbol of French Republic and liberty. Red cap, tricolor, cockade. Appeared in coins and stamps. Germania, Germany. Symbol of German nation. Crown of oak leaves. Heroism. Broken chains. Being freed. Sword. Readiness to fight. Olive branch. Willingness to make peace. Breastplate with the eagle, strength of German Empire, black, red, gold, tricolor, liberal nationalist of 1848, rise sun, beginning of a new era, the fallen Germany, 1850, painted by Julius Hubner, symbolizes the failure of the 1848 revolution in Germany. Now, some of the assertion reason questions. The Germany became the allegory of the German nation. Nations were often represented as female figures to give a concrete form to an abstract idea. A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. We can continue with the revolutionaries, age of revolution, Frankfurt Parliament, unification of Germany, unification. Now we have to go to the next topic, that is the final topic in this chapter, nationalism and imperialism. Nationalism and imperialism. By the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism no longer retained its idealistic, liberal, democratic sentiment of the first half of the century, but became a narrow creed with limited ends. During this period, nationalist groups became increasingly intolerant of each other and ever ready to go to war. The major European powers, in turn, manipulated the nationalist aspirations of the subject peoples in Europe to further their own imperialist aims. So, coming to the explanation for this nationalism and imperialism, the change in nationalism. In the first half of the 19th century, nationalism was linked with freedom, democracy, liberalism, national unity. But by the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism became aggressive, intolerant, narrow minded. Many countries began competing with one another and were ready to go to war. Many countries began competing with one another and were ready to go to war. War. Imperialism. Imperialism means a policy in which a powerful country extends its control over weaker countries or territories. European powers used nationalism to expand their empires, gain colonies, increase political and economic power. Thus, nationalism was often used to support imperialist ambitions. Imperialism, example for imperialism is India's case. When British came to rule India, it is considered as a case of imperialism because Britain was a powerful country and they wanted to extend its control over weaker countries. At that time, India was a weaker country, so British come to India to take over the territories and control of India. So it is an example for imperialism. The Balkans, the most dangerous region, the most serious source of nationalist tension after 1871 was the Balkans. The Balkans included Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. So, why was the Balkans region explosive? Ethnic diversity. The Balkans had many different ethnic groups, mainly called the Slavs. Decline of the Ottoman Empire. A large part of the Balkans were controlled by the Ottoman Empire. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, many Balkan nationalists demanded independence. They wanted to form their own nation states. And romantic nationalism. People believed that they had once been independent, foreign powers had conquered them, they should regain their lost freedom. Why did conflicts increase? Different Balkan groups wanted independence, more territory. At the same time, major powers like Russia, Germany, Austria Hungary, Britain tried to increase their influence in the Balkans. This created intense rivalry and tension. The most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 was the area called Balkans. The Balkans was a region of geographical and ethnic variation comprising modern day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro, whose inhabitants were broadly known as slaves. A large part of the Balkans was under the control of Ottoman Empire. The spread of the ideas of romantic nationalism in Balkans together with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire made this region very explosive. Although the 19th century Ottoman Empire had sought to strengthen itself through modernization and internal reforms but with very little success. One by one, its European subject nationalities broke away from its control and declared independence. The Balkan people based their claims for independence or political rights on the nationality and used history to prove that been they had once been independent but had subsequently been subjugated by foreign powers. Hence, the rebellious nationalists in Balkans thought of their struggles as attempts to win back their long lost independence. And as the different Slavic nationalities struggled to defend their identity and independence, the Balkan area became an area of intense conflict. The Balkan states were fiercely jealous of each other and each hoped to gain more territory at the expense of others. Matters were further complicated because the Balkans also became the scene of big power rivalry. During this period, there was intense rivalry among the European powers over trade and colonies, as well as naval and military might. These rivalries were very evident in the way the Balkan problem unfolded. Each power, Russia, Germany, England, Austro Hungary, was keen on countering the hold of other powers over the Balkans and extending its own control over the area. This led to a series of wars in the region and finally the First World War. This part explains why the Balkans became a conflict zone, how imperialism increased tensions, and how these developments eventually led to World War One. Why did the Balkans become an area of intense conflict? The different Slavic nationalities wanted their own identity, independence, more territory. As a result, Balkan states become jealous of one another. Each wanted to expand it at the expense of others. Frequent conflict and rivalries arose. Big power rivalry. The Balkans was also important to major European powers, that is Russia, Germany, England, Austro-Hungary, etc. Each power wanted greater influence on the Balkans. To prevent rivalries from gaining control, this rivalry caused a series of wars in the Balkans, growing tensions across Europe, and eventually the outbreak of World War I in 1914. A map celebrating the British Empire. What does this picture show? According to NCRT, angels carry banners of freedom and fraternity. The British lion, symbol of Britain, sits proudly over the globe. Colonies are shown through images of tigers, elephants, forest, and native people. Message of the picture. The map glorifies the British Empire and presents it as powerful, civilized, a source of national pride. It reflects how nationalism became linked with imperialism. Nationalism plus imperialism is equal to disaster. NCRT states nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1914, meaning national pride became aggressive, countries competed for colonies and power, rivalries increased. This continued to the outbreak of World War I. Rise of anti imperial nationalism. Many countries under European colonial rule began resisting imperialism. These movements opposed foreign rule, demanded independence, wanted to create nation states. Examples later include India, Vietnam, Egypt, many African countries. These movements were nationalist because people united against foreign domination. NCRT exam question. How did nationalism contribute to World War One? Nationalism became aggressive and combined with imperialism. European powers competed for colonies, military strength, and influence, especially in the Balkans. These rivalries eventually led to World War in 1914. Which region became the scene of intense rivalry among European powers and eventually contributed to the outbreak of World War One? Balkans. Explanation. The Balkans became the center of intense rivalry among European powers. Nationalist movements, territorial disputes, and competition among Russia, Germany, Britain, and Austro Hungary made the region highly unstable and eventually contributed to World War One, 1914. Why did the Balkan states often come into conflict with one another? They wanted to remain under Ottoman rule. They were fiercely jealous of each other and wanted more territory. They opposed nationalism. They wanted to unite into one Balkan nation. Why did the Balkan states often come into conflict with one another? They were fiercely jealous of each other and wanted more territory. The Balkan states were fiercely jealous of one another and each hoped to gain more territory at the expense of others. This made the Balkans an area of continuous conflict. According to NCRT, which of the following powers was not mentioned as competing for influence in the Balkans? Russia, Germany, Austro Hungary, Italy. No, Italy was not included. In the NCRT text, the major powers mentioned as competing for influence in the Balkans were Russia, Germany, England or Britain, Austro-Hungary. Italy is not mentioned in this paragraph. According to NCRT, nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to a disaster in 1914. Nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1914. The intense competition among European powers for colonies, trade, military strength, and influence eventually contributed to the outbreak of World War One. Next MCQ. The anti imperial movements in colonized countries were nationalist because they The anti-imperial movements in colonized countries were nationalist because they supported European imperialism, wanted to strengthen colonial rule, struggled to form independent nation state and achieve national unity, opposed to the idea of nations. C. Explanation. Anti-imperial movements were nationalist because people united against foreign rule and sought to create independent nation states based on the shared identity and common goals. What was the main purpose of 1886 map of the British Empire shown in NCRT? To show the weakness of Britain, to criticize imperialism, to celebrate and glorify the power of British Empire, to support the Ottoman Empire. I think it is to celebrate and glorify the power of British Empire. Yes. The 1886 map of the British Empire was designed to celebrate and glorify British imperial power. It portrayed the empire as vast, powerful, and a source of national pride. The British lion sitting over the globe symbolized Britain's dominance. According to NCRT, what was the immediate result of the rivalry among Balkan states and European powers? Formation of the League of Nations, a series of wars in the region, unification of the Balkans, end of nationalism in Europe. A series of wars in the region. The rivalry among Balkan states and the competition of major European powers in the region led to a series of wars in the Balkans. This conflict increased tensions throughout Europe and eventually contributed to World War I, 1914. Why did the Balkan peoples claim independence from the Ottoman Empire? They wanted to spread imperialism. They believed that they had once been independent and should regain their freedom. They wanted to unite with Britain. They supported Ottoman rule. They believed that they had once been independent and should regain their freedom. Explanation. Many Balkan peoples believed that they had once been independent but were later conquered by the Ottoman Empire. Inspired by romantic nationalism, they wanted to regain their lost freedom and establish independent nation states. Which statement best explains imperialism? A policy of granting independence to colonies, a policy by which a powerful country extends control over weaker territories and peoples, a movement for democracy within a country, and a system of cooperation among equal nations. The most probable answer is B. Imperialism is a policy in which a powerful country extends its political, economic, or military control over weaker countries or territories. European powers used imperialism to expand their empires and gain resources, markets, and influence. According to NCRT, by the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism became closely associated with the democracy and liberalism only, became a narrow creed with limited ends, disappeared from Europe, promoted peace among all nations. Become a narrow creed with limited ends. NCRT states that by the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism was no longer mainly associated with democracy and freedom. It had become a narrow creed with limited ends, often linked to imperialism, rivalry, and aggression. Which of the following was a direct consequence of nationalism being linked with imperialism? Which of the following was a direct consequence of nationalism being linked with imperialism? Decline of European rivalries, increase in cooperation among nations, outbreak of World War in 1914, end of colonial expansion. It must be outbreak of World War I in 1914. NCRT concludes that when the nationalism became linked with imperialism, European nations competed aggressively for colonies, military power, and influence. These rivalries created tensions that ultimately contributed to the outbreak of World War I in 1914. Why was the Balkans often described as the power cake of Europe? It was the most industrialized region of Europe. It had many rival nationalist groups and attracted the interest of major European powers. It was completely controlled by Britain. It was free from conflict and wars. It had many rival nationalist groups and attracted the interest of major European powers. The Balkans was called the powder keg of Europe because many different ethnic and nationalist groups lived there. Balkan states were competing with one another for territory. The weakening Ottoman Empire created a power vacuum. Major European powers, that is Russia, Germany, Britain, and Austro Hungary, were competing for influence in this region. These tensions made the Balkans highly unstable, and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 triggered the chain of events leading to World War I. Why was the Balkans called the it's power cake of Europe? The Balkans were called the powder cage of Europe because the rival nationalist groups and major European powers competed for influence there, leading to constant tensions and conflicts. You have now completed the entire NCERT chapter, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe revision. Now, before that, we have to go to the past previous year questions asked from the two sections, that is nationalism and imperialism, and the earliest chapter, visualization. Sorry, it was visualizing the nation. This is the previous year question that has been asked in the board exams of CBSE 10th. These are previous CBSE board exam questions from the chapter The Rise of Nationalism in Europe 2025. In reference to Germania allegory, the olive branch around the sword symbolizes olive branch around the sword, that is willingness to make peace. Okay. What is an allegory? State one example. An allegory is a way of expressing an abstract idea through a person or an object. Germania was the allegory of the German nation. Marianne was the allegory of France. How had the female figures become an allegory of the nation during the 19th century in Europe? Nations are abstract ideas and cannot be represented directly. Artists represented nations as female figures to give a concrete form to the nation. These figures did not represent any real woman. In France, the male allegory was Marianne. In Germany, the female allegory was Germania. How had the female figures become an allegory of the nation during the 19th century Europe? Nations are abstract ideas and cannot be represented directly. Artists represent the nations as female figures to give a concrete form to the nation. These figures did not represent any real woman. In France, female was explained Frederick Sorrio's dream in the context of democratic and social republic in France during 1848. Frederick Sorio imagined a world of democratic and social republics. Nations of the world were marching in a procession, paying homage to the Statue of Liberty. The peoples of Europe and America were shown as free nations. Liberty, equality, and fraternity guided the people. The dream reflected the nationalist aspirations of the 19th century. Examine the significance of the Statue of Liberty in Frederick Sorio's painting. The Statue of Liberty symbolizes freedom and independence. It leads the procession of nation. It represents the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. It reflects the aspirations of people struggling against autocratic rule. It symbolizes democratic and nationalist ideals. To which country did the artist Frederick Sorio belong? France. Why did French artist Frederick Sorio prepare a series of prints based on the democratic and social republics in 1848? To express his vision of a world made up of democratic and social republics, to portray the aspirations of nationalists for freedom and self-government, to spread the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, to oppose autocratic monarchies, to inspire people struggling for national independence. Super important board exam facts. Marianne, France, Germany. Germany, olive branch around sword, willingness to make peace, crown of oak leaves, heroism, broken chain, being freed. Frederick Sorio, French artist, dream painted in 1848, Statue of Liberty means liberty, equality, and fraternity. These are among the most frequently repeated board exam questions from this chapter. Who described the nation as the daily plebiscite? Strictly from visualizing nation. Board exam. The female figure chosen to personify the nation is represented a real queen of the country, represented a famous freedom fighter, give a concrete form to the abstract idea of the nation, represented the ruling dynasty. C. Explanation: the female figure did not represent any real woman. It was used to give a concrete form to the abstract idea of the nation. Which of the following was the national allegory of France? Marianne. Marianne was the female allegory of France. She symbolized liberty and the republic and was represented with the red cap, tricolor, and a cockade. Which symbol was associated with Marianne? Red cap. The red cap was one of the most important symbols of Marianne. It symbolized liberty and freedom. Images of Marianne were marked on coins and stamps. Marianne's images were stamped on coins and stamps, and her statues were erected in public places to remind people of national unity. The allegory of the German nation was known as Germania. The Germania was the female allegory of the German nation. She symbolized German unity and nationalism. In the allegory of Germania, the crown of oak leaves symbolized heroism. What did the broken chains in Germania's allegory represent? Being freed. The broken chains in Germania's allegory represented being freed from bondage and oppression. The black, red, and gold tricolor in the allegory of Germania stood for flag of German Empire. The flag of the liberal nationalists in 1848. The black, red, and gold tricolor represented the flag of the liberal nationalists during the 1848 revolution in the German state. The olive branch around the sword in Germany's allegory symbolized olive branch. Olive branch around the sword in Germany's allegory represents willingness to make peace. The olive branch around the sword symbolizes willingness to make peace. It shows that the nation desires peace, but it's also prepared to defend itself if necessary. The rays of the rising sun in Germany's allegory represent beginning of a new era. The rays of the rising sun symbolize the beginning of a new era and the hope for a brighter future for the German nation. Who painted the fallen Germania in 1850? Julius Hubner. Julius Hubner painted the fallen Germany in 1850. The painting symbolizes the disappointment and failure of the 1848 revolution in Germany. In fallen Germania, the Germany is shown fallen because Germany was defeated by France. Germany empire collapsed in the 1848 revolution, failed to achieve its goal. Germany lost World War I. The 1848 revolution failed to achieve its goals. The fallen Germania symbolizes the failure of the 1848 revolution. German nationalists and liberals failed to achieve a united democratic Germany at that time, and Germania is shown fallen to express the disappointment. Which of the following symbols represents the strength of the German Empire? Strength of the German Empire. Breastplate with eagle shows strength. The breastplate with the eagle represents the strength of the German Empire. The eagle was a traditional symbol of German power and authority. Which of the following statement is correct about Marianne? She was the allegory of the Germany. She represented no, she was the allegory of France. She represented the French Republic and liberty. She wore a crown of oak leaves. She was a real queen of France. No, she was not a real queen. She wore a crown of oak leaves. No, oak leaves was worn by Germania. She represented the French Republic and liberty. Yes. Explanation. Marianne was the national allegory of France. Her characteristics were drawn from liberty and republic, and she became a symbol of French national unity. Which of the following is not associated with Germania? Which of the following is not associated with Germania? Broken chains, crown of oak leaves, red cap, black, red and gold tricolor. Red cap. Explanation. The red cap is associated with Marianne of France, not Germania. Germania, broken chains, crown of oak leaves, breastplate with eagle, sword, olive branch, black, red, gold tricolor, rays of the rising sun. Marianne, red cap, tricolor, cockade. The characteristics of Marianne were drawn from liberty and republic. According to NCRT, the characteristics of Marianne were drawn from liberty and the republic. She became the symbol of the French nation and represented the ideals of French Revolution. An allegory is a military symbol used during wars, a political slogan used by nationalists, a person or object through which an abstract idea is expressed. A person or object through which an abstract idea is expressed. Marianne, allegory of France. Germania, allegory of Germany. They were used to represent the abstract idea of a nation. High probability board exam question. Why were female figures used to represent nations in the 19th century? Women ruled most European countries. No, female figures were more popular in art. Nations were abstract ideas and needed a visible human form. That will be the most probable answer. Artists were forbidden from drawing men. Nations are abstract ideas. You cannot see or touch a nation. Therefore, artists represented nations as female figures or allegories to give them a visible human form that people could identify with and feel attached to. What was the purpose of erecting statues of Marianne in public squares? To remind people of national unity and persuade them to identify with the nation. Explanation. Statues of Marianne were erected in public squares to remind people of national unity and encourage them to identify with the French nation. They served as powerful symbols of the republic and liberty. Which symbol in Germania's allegory represents readiness to fight? Readiness to fight. Sword. Which symbol in Germania's allegory represents being freed? Broken chains. The breastplate with the eagle in Germania's allegory represents strength of the German Empire. The breastplate with the eagle symbolizes the strength of German Empire. The eagle was a traditional symbol of power, authority and sovereignty in Germany. Which symbol in Germania's allegory represents heroism? Crown of oak leaves. The crown of oak leaves in Germania's allegory symbolizes heroism. The oak tree was traditionally regarded as a symbol of courage, strength, and heroic virtues in Germany. Which of the following pairs is currently matched? Marianne, Germany, Germany, France, Marianne, France, Germany, Britain. Marianne, France. Marianne, France, Germany, Germany. Marianne symbolized the French Republic and liberty, while Germany symbolized the German nation. Which of the following symbols was associated with Marianne? Marianne was associated with cockade. Cockade means a type of ribbon. The cockade was one of the symbols associated with Marianne. Along with the red cap and tricolor, it represented the ideals of the French Republic and liberty. The images of Marianne on coins and stamps were meant to increase the value of French currency, remain people of national unity and nation state. B. Which symbol in Germany's allegory represents the beginning of a new era? A rise of the rising sun. Which statement about Germany is correct? She was a real German queen? No. She represented the French Republic? No. She was the allegory of the German nation? Yes. Which of the following symbols is associated with Marianne and not Germania? A red cap. Sorry. Explanation. The red cap is associated with Marianne, France and symbolizes liberty. It is not a symbol of Germania. Marianne, red cap, tricolor, cockade. Germania, crown of oak leaves, sword, breastplate with eagle, broken chains, olive branch, black, red, gold, tricolor. Which of the following best defines an allegory? An allegory is a real historical figure representing a nation. A national flag used by revolutionaries is a person or object representing an abstract idea. A person or object representing the abstract idea. Marianne, allegory of France. Germany, allegory of Germany. Justice, blindfolded woman with weighing scale represents justice. Now we can do some previous year question relating to nationalism and imperialism. These are very important Cbse board previous year questions from nationalism and imperialism, Balkans. Here's how to answer them. The most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 was the area called the Balkans. Evaluate the statement in the context of Slavic movement. The most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 was the area called the Balkans. Evaluate the statement in the context of Slavic movement. The Balkans was a region comprising modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. Most of its inhabitants were known as Slavs. A large part of the Balkans was under the control of Ottoman Empire. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, the Slavs demanded independence and the formation of their own nation states. Different Slavic groups competed for territory and influence. Their nationalist aspirations created tensions and conflicts in Balkans. Therefore, the Balkans became the most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871. Describe the historical factors that contributed to the emergence of nationalist tension in the Balkans. The Balkans had a large population of different ethnic groups, especially the Slavs. Much of the region was under Ottoman rule. Ottoman Empire gradually declined during the 19th century. Various Balkan nationalists claimed independence. They believed they had once been independent and should regain their lost freedom. Rival Balkan states competed for territory and influence. Major European powers such as Russia, Germany, Britain, and Austro-Hungary also intervened in this region. These factors created intense nationalist tension in the Balkans. How did the tension in the Balkans region become the major cause of the First World War? The Balkans became a center of nationalist conflicts after the decline of the Ottoman Empire. Different Balkan states fought among themselves for territory. Major European powers competed for influence in the region. Russia supported Slavic nationalism while Austro-Hungary opposed it. Rivalries among European powers increased tensions. The assassination of Arkud Franz Ferdinand at Sarajevo in 1914 further intensified the conflict. This tension ultimately led to the outbreak of the First World War. The most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1817 was the Balkans. A large part of Balkans was under the control of Ottoman Empire. Both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Ottoman rule led to the nationalist movements for independence. As the empire weakened, conflict increased among Balkan nationalities. Napoleonic Wars, Treaty of Vienna, Greek struggle for independence, Slav nationalism in the Ottoman Empire. Arranged in chronological order. First is Napoleonic Wars, that was between from 1803 to 1815, and then Treaty of Vienna in 1815. Greek struggle of independence in 1821 to 1832. Slav nationalism in the Ottoman Empire in the later 19th century. The idealistic liberal democratic sentiment of the nationalism became a narrow creed with limited ends. Support the statement in the context of Balkan nationalism. Earlier nationalism promoted liberty, democracy, and national unity. In the Balkans, nationalism became aggressive and narrow. Different Balkan states competed for territory. Each state wanted to expand at the expense of others. Nationalism led to rivalry rather than unity. Conflicts among Balkan states increased, thus, nationalism lost its liberal democratic character and became a narrow creed. It is the same sentence as that of NCRT. This sentence can be similarly seen as the exact in social studies textbook. This is the sentence. The idealist liberal democratic sentiment of the first half of the century, but came a narrow creed with limited ends. Support the statement in the context of Balkan nationalism. Earlier, nationalism promoted liberty, democracy, and national unity. But in the Balkans, nationalism became aggressive and narrow. Different Balkan states competed for territory. Each state wanted to expand at the expense of others. Nationalism led to rivalry rather than unity. Conflicts among Balkan states increased. Thus, nationalism lost its liberal democratic character and becomes a narrow creed. What do you mean by rivalry? Competition, conflict, or struggle between two or more people, groups, or countries trying to achieve the same goal or be better than each other. Narrow creed. Narrow means limited or broad minded. Creed means beliefs or principles. Narrow creed means narrow minded belief system. Limited belief system. So the nationalism lost its liberal democratic character and becomes very limited. Nationalism no longer retained its idealistic liberal democratic sentiment by the last quarter of the 19th century in Europe, unlike the statement with the examples. Earlier, nationalism was associated with the freedom, democracy, and national unity. By the late 19th century, that is from 1850 to 1900 period, nationalism became closely linked with imperialism. European nations competed for colonies and economic dominance. In the Balkans, nationalist groups fought among themselves for territory. Major European powers also competed for influence in the region. Nationalism became aggressive and intolerant. These rivalries eventually contributed to the outbreak of First World War in 1914. Board exam keywords: Balkans, Slavs, Ottoman Empire, independence, territorial rivalry, imperialism. Nationalism became a narrow creed. World War I, 1914. 5-minute revision of visualizing the nation plus nationalism and imperialism. Visualizing the nation. Why were nations represented as female figures? A nation is an abstract idea. Artists give it a human form through allegories. Allegory: a person or object representing an abstract idea. Examples: justice, blindfolded woman with scales; liberty, woman with red cap; nation, female allegory. Mariana, France, symbolized liberty, republic, French nation. Symbols: red cap, tricolor, and cockade. Important statues in public squares. Images on coins and stamps. Reminded people of national unity. Germania, Germany, symbolized by German nation. Symbols and meanings. It's break time. Just take a short break of 10 minutes. You can take the time to stretch, relax, and drink little water. Welcome back, everyone. Let's start. Germania. Germany. Symbolized German nation. Symbols and meanings. Broken chains means being freed. Breastplate with the eagle indicated strength of German Empire. Crown of oak leaves means heroism. Sword meaning readiness to fight, and olive branch around sword indicates willingness to make peace. Black, red, gold tricolor indicates liberal nationalist of 1848. Rise of rising sun indicates the beginning of a new era. The fallen Germania 1850, its painter was Julius Hubner. Represents failure of the 1840 revolution, disappointment of German nationalists. Nationalism and imperialism. What changed after 1871? Earlier nationalism, liberty, democracy, and national unity. Later nationalism was aggressive, narrow creed, and linked with imperialism. Imperialism, policy by which a powerful country controls weaker territories. European countries acquired colonies, expanded empires, and competed for power. Balkans. Why important? The most serious source of national tension after 1871 included Serbia, Montenegro, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Albania, Bosnia, Croatia, Slovenia, Macedonia. Why tensions arose? Ottoman Empire weakened, controlled much of Balkans. As it declined, people demanded independence. Slavic nationalism. Most inhabitants were Slavs. Wanted independent nation states. Territorial rivalry. Balkan states fought for territory. European powers intervened. Russia, Germany, Britain, Austro-Hungary all wanted influence in Balkans. Result: series of Balkan wars, growing tensions in Europe, World War I, 1914. Nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1914. Most important one word answers. Allegory of France was Marianne. Allegory of Germany is Germania. Painter of fallen Germania, Julius Hubner. Symbol of heroism, crown of oak leaves. Symbol of peace, olive branch around sword. Symbol of freedom, broken chains. Flag of liberal nationalist, 1848, black, red, gold tricolor. Most serious source of tension after 1871 was Balkans. Major ethnic group in Balkans was Slavs. Empire controlling Balkans was Ottoman Empire, and disaster of 1914 was First World War. Germany was the allegory of the German nation. Nations were represented as female figures to give a concrete form to the abstract idea of a nation. Yes. A. Germany was the allegory of the German nation. Nations were represented as female figures to give concrete form to the abstract idea of a nation. The reason directly explains why figures like Germany and Marianne were created. Last minute board revision, visualizing the nation. Allegory, abstract idea represented through a person or object. Marianne means France, Germany means Germany. Marianne symbols red cap, tricolor, cockade. Germany symbols oak leaves, sword, olive branch, eagle, broken chains. Julius Hubner painted the fallen Germany in 1850. The fallen Germania is failure of the 1848 revolution. Nationalism and imperialism. After 1871, nationalism became aggressive. Nationalism became linked with imperialism. Imperialism means control of weaker countries by stronger countries. Balkans, most serious source of nationalist tension. Slavs, major ethnic group in the Balkans. Ottoman Empire controlled much of the Balkans. Balkan states fought for territory. Russia, Germany, Britain, and Austro-Hungary competed for influence. Nationalism and imperialism led to World War I in 1914. Most frequently asked CBSE questions are: what is an allegory? Who were Mariana and Germania? Explain the symbols associated with Germania. Why were female figures used to represent nations? Why was the Balkans the most serious source of nationalist tension after 1871? How did Balkan tensions contribute to World War I? Explain how nationalism became a narrow creed by the late 19th century. What is an allegory? Answers in short form. Abstract idea represented by a person or object. So, what is an allegory? Abstract idea represented by a person or object. Who was Marianne? Allegory of France. Who was Germany? Allegory of France. Allegory of Germany. And symbols of Marianne was a red cap, cockade, and tricolor flag. Tricolor. Symbols of Germany include oak leaves, sword, eagle, broken chains. Meaning of broken chains, freedom. Meaning of crown of oak leaves, heroism. Meaning of sword, readiness to fight. Meaning of olive branch around sword, peace. Meaning of breastplate with eagle, strengthened the German Empire. Meaning of black, red, gold tricolor means liberal nationalist of 1848. Meaning of rising sun, beginning of a new era. Who painted the fallen Germania? Julius Hubner. What does the fallen Germany represent? Failure of 1848 revolution. Why were female figures used to represent the nation? What is imperialism? Control of weaker countries. Control of weaker countries by stronger countries. That is imperialism. What happened to the nationalism after 1871? Became aggressive and narrow. Nationalism became aggressive and narrow. Most serious source of tension after 1871 was Balkans. Major ethnic group of Balkans is Slavs, which empire controlled much of the Balkans. Ottoman Empire. Why did Balkan nationalism arise? Decline of Ottoman Empire. Why did Balkan states fight for territory? Major powers involved in Balkans was Russia, Germany, Britain, Austro-Hungary. What did nationalism become linked with? Imperialism. Result of nationalism plus imperialism was First World War 1914. Why was Balkans called the powder keg of Europe? Constant nationalist tensions and rivalries. Main cause of World War I from this chapter was Balkan tensions. Super short keywords for boards. Marianne, France, Germany, allegory, symbolic figure, red cap, liberty, oak leaves, heroism, broken chain, freedom, sword, fight, olive branch, peace, eagle, strength, rising sun, new era, Balkans, tension, Slavs, nationalism, Ottoman Empire decline, imperialism expansion, and 1914 First World War. Who became the allegory of France? Who became the allegory of France? Mariana. Who became the allegory of Germany? Germania. The red cap is associated with Mariana. The crown of oak leaf symbolizes the crown of oak leaf symbolizes heroism. Broken chain symbolizes broken chain, freedom. Being freed. The olive branch around the sword symbolizes willingness to make peace. Olive branch around the sword, willingness to make peace. The breastplate with the eagle symbolizes strength of German Empire. The black, red, gold tricolor represented German Empire after liberal nationalist of 1848. The rays of the rising sun symbolizes beginning of a new era. Who painted the fallen Germania? Julius Hubner. The fallen Germania symbolizes failure of the 1848 revolution. The most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 was Balkans. The major ethnic group in the Balkans was Slavs. Large part of the Balkans was under the control of Ottoman Empire. Why did nationalist tensions arise in the Balkans? Decline of Ottoman Empire. Nationalism became linked with imperialism. Nationalism plus imperialism. Nationalism plus imperialism is aggressive nationalism and colonial expansion. Nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1871 or 1914. I think it's 1940. Starting of World War One. Correct. Nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1914. This is a direct NCERT line. Imperialism means control of weaker countries by stronger countries. Which of the following powers was involved in Balkan rivalry? Russia, Germany, Austro-Hungary, all the above. Russia plus Germany plus Austro-Hungary were all involved in Balkan rivalry. The major consequence of Balkan tension was unification of Italy, French Revolution, First World War, Treaty of Vienna. Major consequence was First World War. Second, 22nd final revision. Mariana, France, Germany, Allegany, symbolic representation, red cap, liberty, conquered Mariana, oak leaves, heroism, broken chains, freedom, sword, readiness to fight, olive branch, peace, eagle, strength, rising sun, new era, Julius Hubner, the fallen Germany, a failure of 1840 revolution, nationalism and imperialism, control of weaker countries, most serious tension Balkans, major ethnic groups Slavs, controlled by Ottoman Empire, cause of tension decline of Ottoman Empire, nationalism became narrow creed, linked with imperialism, major powers Russia, Germany, Britain, Austro-Hungary, result World War I, 1914. Why was the Balkans the most serious source of nationalist tension? Because Slavic nationalists demanded independence from the weakening Ottoman Empire and European powers competed for influence there. Which European powers competed for influence there? Germany, Russia, Austria, and England, or Britain. And which were the nationalities that is present in the Balkans region? Slavs nationalities, and they demanded independence from the weakening Ottoman Empire, and European powers competed for influence there. That was and by these reasons, Balkans was the most serious source of nationalist tension. Why was Balkans called the powder cage of Europe? Due to continuous nationalist rivalries and conflict. How did Balkan tensions led to World War I? Rivalries among Balkan states and European powers ultimately triggered World War I in 1914. Okay. Visualizing the nation. Allegory, abstract idea represented by person or object. Nation, abstract idea. Female figures used as national symbols. Marianne, France, allegory of France, Liberty and Republic, red cap, tricolor, cockade in coins and stamps indicated national unity. Germany, allegory of Germany, crown of Oakley's plus heroism, broken chase, freedom, sword, readiness to fight, olive branch, peace, eagle, strength, black, red, gold, flag, 1814 liberals, rising sun, new era. Fallen Germany was in 1850, Julius Hubner, failure of 1840 revolution. What is an allegory? Who were Marina and Germania? Explain symbols of Germania. Why were female figures used? What does the fallen Germania represent? Nationalism and imperialism. After 1871, nationalism became aggressive, narrow creed linked with imperialism. Imperialism, expansion of empires, colonies, control of weaker countries by stronger countries. Balkans, more serious tension. Slavs were the nationalist. Ottoman Empire, nationalist movement occurred. Causes of tensions: decline of Ottoman Empire, demand for independence, territorial rivalry, European power rivalry. Major powers: Russia, Germany, Britain, Austro-Hungary. Result: Balkan Wars, tensions in Europe, World War I, 1940. Previous year questions from this mind map. Why was Balkans the most serious source of tension? Explain Slavic nationalism. Causes of nationalist tensions in Balkans. How did Balkans lead to World War I? Nationalism became a narrow creed. Explain. Marine France, Germany, allegory, symbolic figure. Red cap, liberty, oak leaves, heroism, broken chains, freedom, sword fight, olive branch, peace, eagle strength, rising sun, new era, Julius Hubner, fallen Germany, 1848, failure of revolution, Balkans tension, Slavs nationalism, Ottoman Empire decline, imperialism expansion, 1871, aggressive nationalism, 1914, World War I. Balkans, Slavs, Ottoman decline, demand for independence, territorial rivalries, European power rivalries, World War I, 1914. Memorize this flowchart and you can answer almost every Cbse previous questions from nationalism and imperialism in 4 to 5 marks. And we can do a small revision of yesterday's classes, that is German unification, Italy unification and Britain unification. German unification. 39 states. Prussia was the strongest state. Key person was Ottoman. Bismarck. Policy blood and iron. Denmark 1864. Austria 1866. France 1870 to 1871. Result: German Empire proclaimed in 1871. At the Palace of Versailles, Kaiser William I became the emperor. Memory line of German unification. 39 states. Bismarck, blood and iron. Denmark, Austria, France, and Versailles 1871. Italy unification. Before unification, there were 7 states. Sardinia Piedmont led unification. Key person Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Italy in 1831. Count Camillo di Cavour, chief architect. Giuseppe Garibaldi led Red Shirts and Victor Emmanuel II, first king. Major events: Austria was defeated in 1859. Garibaldi captured Sicily and southern Italy in 1860. Italy unified in 1861. So the Italy unification short memory line: 7 state, Mazzini, Young Italy, Cavour, Austria 1859, Garibaldi, Red Shirts, Victor Emmanuel II, and Italy 1861. Britain. Before unification, English, Welsh, Scots, and Irish. Key idea: England became dominant. Important acts: Act of 1707, England plus Scotland. Act of Union 1801, Ireland added. Result: United Kingdom formed. New identity: Union Jack, national anthem, and English language. England dominant. Wales 1707, Scotland 1801, Ireland, Union Jack, and Britain. One page comparison. Germany, Italy, and Britain. Germany 39 states, Italy 7 states, Britain English, Welsh, Scots, and Irish. In Germany, the main nation that led or protested for German unification was Prussia. In Italy, it was Sardinia Piedmont, and in Britain, it is England. Germany, the chief architect was Bismarck. Italy, chief architect was Cavour, and in Britain, it was English Parliament. Germany, it was called blood and iron policy. Italy, through diplomacy and wars, and Britain through acts of union. In Germany, German unification occurred completed in 1871. Italy unification completed in 1861, and Britain it was completed in 1817. 1871 Union of Britain was formed, and in 1801 Ireland also joined with Britain. Versailles, Germany unification takes place at Versailles, and in Italy it was Victor Emmanuel II, the king of Italy, and Britain some Union Jack was the flag of Britain. Board exam super questions. Germany. Why is Otto von Bismarck called the architect of German unification? Explain the role of Prussia in German unification. Italy. Explain the role of Giuseppe Mazzini, Count Camillo di Cavour, and Giuseppe Garibaldi in Italian unification. Britain. Why is Britain called the strange case of nation building? Explain the role of the acts of union in British nation building. Germany. 39 states. Bismarck 3 wars and Versailles in 1871. Italy 7 states. Mazzini, Cavour, Garibaldi, Victor Emmanuel II in Italy 1861. Britain, England 1707, Scotland 1801, Ireland, and Union Jack. Now try this rapid fire revision without looking. Germany had 39 states. Italy had 7 states. Founder of Young Italy, Mazzini. Chief architect of German unification, Otto von Bismarck. Chief architect of Italian unification, Cavour. Leader of Red Shirts, Giuseppe Garibaldi. First king of unified Italy, Victor Emmanuel II. Act that united England and Scotland, the Act of Union 1707. Act that incorporated Ireland, Act of Union 1801. Place where German Empire was proclaimed, Hall of Mirror in Palace of Versailles. States, Italy 7 states, Giuseppe Young Italy, German unification Otto von Bismarck, Italian unification Count Camillo di Cavour, Red Shirts Giuseppe Garibaldi, unified Italy Victor Emmanuel II, the Act that united England and Scotland, Act of Union 1707, Act incorporated Ireland, Act of Union 1801. Place where the German Empire was proclaimed, Hall of Mirrors, Palace of Versailles. Germany 39 states, Prussia was stronger, Bismarck, Otto Bismarck, blood and iron, Denmark 1864, Austria 1860, France 1872, 1870, Versailles, case of 1 1871. And in Italy, 7 state Mussolini, Young Italy 1831, Cavour, Austria 1815, and Garibaldi, Red Shirt, Sicily and Southern Italy 1860, Victor Emmanuel II 1861. Britain, England dominant, Wales, Act of Union 1707, Scotland, Act of Union 1801, Ireland, Union, Jack and British nation. Most important years. 1707, England plus Scotland, 1801, Ireland joins UK. 1831, Young Italy. 1859, Austria defeated Italy. 1861, Italy united. 1864, Denmark defeated. 1866, Austria defeated by Prussia. 1871, Germany unified. Who among the following believed that the nations are the natural units of mankind and founded in Europe? In Europe, in Italy, these all were founded by Cbse Mazzini. Founded in Italy in 1831, founded in Europe, believed the nations are the natural units of mankind, wanted a united republic, Italy. Which of the following correctly matches the leader with his role? Bismarck, leader of Red Shirts, no. Garibaldi, Chief Minister of Sardinia, Piedmont, no. It was Cavour. Red Shirts, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Cavour, Chief Architect of Italian Unification, yes. Victor Emmanuel II, founder of Young Italy, no. Founder of Young Italy was Giuseppe Mazzini. Victor Emmanuel II was the King of Prussia. C. Red Shirts were led by Giuseppe Garibaldi. Cavour, not Garibaldi, was the Prime Minister of Sardinia, Piedmont. And Young Italy was founded by Giuseppe Mazzini. The German Empire was proclaimed in 1871 at Hall of Mirrors, Palace of Versailles. On 18 January 1871, the German Empire was proclaimed in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. Kaiser William I was declared German Emperor. This marked the completion of German unification. Which one of the following statement is not correct according to NCERT? Germany was unified under the leadership of Prussia. Yes. Italy was unified under the leadership of Sardinia, Piedmont. Yes. Britain was unified mainly through parliamentary acts. Yes. Scotland retained its separate parliament after the Act of Union 1707. Yes. I think Britain was unified mainly through parliamentary acts. It is not correct. Britain was unified mainly through a gradual process. So I think C will be the answer. Most probably C will be the answer. Incorrect. Scotland retained its separate parliament after the Act of Union 1707. Why? The Act of 1707, Scotland lost its separate parliament. It retained its church and legal system, not its parliament. Oh. Germany was unified under Prussia. Italy was unified under Sardinia, Piedmont. Britain was unified mainly through the Acts of Union and parliamentary process. Okay. Which event came first in chronological order? Italian unification, was completed in 1861. German unification was completed in 1871. Act of Union between England and Scotland 1707. Garibaldi's expedition to Sicily was somewhat between 1860, I think. So, C, D, A, B. C, D, A, B. Correct. Act of Union between England and Scotland 1707. Italian unification 1861. Garibaldi's expedition to Sicily 1860. German unification 1871. Since the question asked which came first, the answer is Act of Union between England and Scotland 1707. Who rejected the crown offered by Frankfurt Parliament in 1848? Frederick William IV. Frederick William IV, the Frankfurt Parliament 1848 offered him the crown of a united Germany. He rejected it because he did not want a crown offered by elected representatives. This was one of the reasons for the failure of the Frankfurt Parliament. Which of the following pairs is correctly matched? Mazzini, blood and iron. No, it was for Bismarck. Bismarck, chief architect of Italian unification. No, German unification. Garibaldi, red shirts. Yes, Cavour, young Europe, young Italy. Yes, Garibaldi, red shirts is the correct answer. Cbse Garibaldi, red shirts. Cbse Mazzini, young Italy or young Europe, not blood and iron. Otto von Bismarck, blood and iron, not Italian unification. Count Camillo di Cavour, chief architect of Italian unification, not young Europe. According to NCRT, which state led the process of German unification? Prussia. After the failure of the Frankfurt Parliament, Prussia took the lead in German unification. The process was carried out under the leadership of Otto von Bismarck. German unification was achieved through military power and diplomacy. Which of the following is the correct sequence for Italian unification? First was Mazzini, then Cavour, Mazzini, Cavour, Garibaldi, Victor Emmanuel II. Cbse Mazzini gave the idea of unified Italy or young Italy. Count Camillo di Cavour planned and led the political unification. Cbse Garibaldi fought with the red shirts and captured Sicily and southern Italy. Victor Emmanuel II became king of United Italy in 1861. Which one of the following statements about Britain is correct? Britain was unified by a series of wars led by Bismarck. No. Britain was formed mainly through acts of union and parliamentary process. Yes. Scotland retained its separate parliament after 1707. No. Scotland lost the parliament. Ireland joined the United Kingdom voluntarily in 1801. Ireland joined the Britain not voluntarily, involuntarily in 1801. So the answer is B. Britain was formed mainly through acts of union and parliamentary process. Britain is called the strange case because Germany unified through wars, Italy unified through diplomacy and wars, Britain unified mainly through parliamentary acts and political integration. Which one of the following details is not directly associated with the unification of Italy? Otto von Bismarck is associated with the German unification. Italy, Mazzini, Cavour, Garibaldi, Victor Emmanuel II, Germany, Bismarck, Kaiser William I, Britain, Acts of Union and English Parliament. How many states were there in the German Confederation before unification? 39. Before unification, Germany was made up of 39 states. These states formed the German Confederation. Prussia and Austria were the most influential states. Which of the following correctly matches the year with the event? 1831 German Empire proclaimed. 1861 Italy unified. 1707 Ireland incorporated into UK. No, it is 1801. 1871 Young Italy founded. 1861. 1831 Young Italy was founded by Giuseppe Mazzini. 1707 England plus Scotland united through the Act of Union 1707, and in 1871 Germany Empire proclaimed. Young Italy was founded in 1831. Who became the first king of unified Italy? Victor Emmanuel II. Victor Emmanuel II, King of Sardinia Piedmont, became the first king of unified Italy in 1861. Garibaldi handed over the conquered territories of Sicily and southern Italy to him. Which of the following best explains why Britain is called the strange case of nation building? Britain was unified by revolutionary nationalists. Britain was unified by military war against Austria and France. Britain was formed through the gradual extension of English power and acts of union. Britain was created by the Frankfurt Parliament. Most probable answer is C. Britain is called the strange case because it was not created by a sudden revolution, it was not unified through wars like Germany, and it was formed gradually through English dominance, parliamentary acts, and political unions. Which leader is correctly associated with the phrase blood and iron? Bismarck. Chief Minister of Prussia followed the policy of blood and iron, used military strength and diplomacy to unify Germany, defeated Denmark in 1864, defeated Austria in 1866, and defeated France in 1870-1871. Which of the following events happened last? Act of Union 1707, Young Italy 1831, Italy unified in 1861. No, Italy unified in 1861. German Empire proclaimed in 1871. So the last happened was German Empire proclaimed. Yes, 1871. So D. It is already given in the answer. Act of Union 1707, Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Italy in 1831, Italy unified in 1861, German Empire proclaimed at a Palace of Versailles in 1871. Which pair is incorrectly matched? Mazzini, Young Italy, correct. Garibaldi, Red Shirts, correct. Cavour, Prime Minister of Sardinia Piedmont, correct. Bismarck, founder of Young Europe, no. Founder of Young Europe was Mazzini. Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Europe and Young Italy. Otto and Bismarck associated with blood and iron and German unification. After defeating which country was the German Empire proclaimed in 1871? After defeating which country was the German Empire proclaimed in 1871? France. In 1870-1871, France was defeated. Denmark was defeated in 1864, Austria was defeated in 1866, and France was defeated in 1870-1871. After defeating France, German Empire was proclaimed in 1871. The ceremony took place in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. Kaiser William I became the German Emperor. Which of the following statement is correct? Germany was unified before Italy. German unification was done in 1871, Italy in 1861. So it is wrong. Italy was unified before Germany is correct. Britain was unified after Germany. Britain was unified in 1707 and 1801. No. Young Italy was founded after German unification. Young Italy was formed in 1831. German unification was done in 1871. So the probable and the correct answer is B. Timeline check. 1707 England plus Scotland united. 1801 Ireland incorporated. 1831 Italy founded. 1861 Italy unified. 1871 Germany unified. So Italy became a nation state 10 years before Germany. Which one of the following leaders did not directly participate in military campaigns for unifications? Giuseppe Garibaldi was a revolutionist, participated in military. Ottoman Bismarck, yes, participated. Count Camillo de Cavour, yes. William I, Kaiser William I, I think. Garibaldi, military commander. Cavour, diplomacy and political strategy. Bismarck, wars and diplomacy. William I, Prussian king or emperor. D. Not the best answer, it's Count Camillo de Cavour. Why? Count Camillo de Cavour was primarily a diplomat and a statesman. He negotiated alliances, especially with France. He planned the political strategy for Italian unification. He did not personally lead military campaigns. I have a small doubt in this question because Giuseppe Garibaldi, direct military commander and red shirts. Ottoman Bismarck used wars as part of his unification strategy. Kaiser William I, monarch associated with the Prussian military campaigns. Because in textbook, NCERT textbook, while defining Cavour, it is said that Cavour was neither a revolutionary nor a democrat. Like many other wealthy, educated members of the Italian elite, he spoke French much better than Italian. Though through a tactful diplomatic alliance with France engineered by Cavour, Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating the Austrian forces in 1859. That means he done a diplomatic tactful alliance with France, but through that alliance, what happened? Sardinia Piedmont defeated Austrian forces in 1859. That means there also a war has occurred. So this question is little doubt question. So we have completed the 3 sessions of history. And thank you all for joining this live session.